Hi there. My name is Cathy Baillargeon. I am the owner of Virtual Cathy, and I am so excited to be hosting this webinar, How to Use Dubsado as a Virtual Assistant. For some background, I own a virtual assisting agency called Virtual Cathy, and Dubsado has been incredibly helpful in the scaling of our agency over the past 3 years. And it has allowed us to help serve and support business owners, busy professionals, and nonprofit organizations across the country. And I'm excited to give you a glimpse of my own business Dubsado account and talk a little bit about how it's allowed us to improve our operations, how it's allowed us to impress the socks off our clients, and allowed us to scale to 17 VAs currently and still growing. The first thing that I wanted to mention to you is that if you are a virtual assistant, whether you are an independent VA, if you have an agency or considering an agency model at some point, or maybe you're just getting started, uh, I want to reiterate that Dubsado is a program where it will meet you where you are, where your business is. And not only will I kind of talk a little bit about how we as an agency use Dubsado on a daily basis, but I will also kind of talk more about how the independent VA can also have Dubsado support their business as well. So let's get started. So how do we utilize Dubsado? If you've watched other webinars that are specific to virtual assistants for Dubsado, a lot of them talk about kind of the journey between the lead becoming a client. And this is going to be no exception. So we're going to talk a little bit about lead capture forms. We'll talk a little bit about proposals and agreements, invoicing, automated workflows, and then I do also want to talk a little bit about some of the functionalities that are kind of supplemental that maybe not everybody utilizes. And so I call them honorable mentions. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Now, when we talk about a client, or I guess a lead journey, um, or a client's journey from start to finish, you always think about how can we capture the interest um, of the people that are interested in our services. I hope that was not redundant. Lead capture forms is it. Now, it's pretty typical when you have a lead capture form that lives on your website, right? It could live as a direct link, like on a button. It says contact me. You can link your Dubsado lead capture form, or you can even embed it into a page of your website so it will actually show up fully in all its glory. So I'm going to show you mine here, and we're going to go to forms. So these are all of my forms. Lead capture is one of them. And the great thing about these lead capture forms is that you can actually attach it to workflows, so automated workflows, meaning if somebody were to fill out this form and they click on which service they're interested in, it will actually not only pull their basic information into Dubsado, notify you via email that you have a lead, but it will also apply a workflow, whether that's automated or approved, to their project. So then, let's say if somebody were to indicate that they wanted admin support, then it would be applied. The interest in admin services lead workflow could be applied. And when it comes to workflow, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a little bit, it could mean them receiving a confirmation email. It could be them receiving a scheduler link to your calendar to set up a meeting. It could look like sending them a freebie to give them value right off the bat. So you can decide what that workflow looks like and what you want to provide. One thing that I want to reiterate too here is that a lead capture form is really to try and capture information to determine whether or not they're a good fit for you. So for example, if they indicate here, what's the reason you're considering outsourcing your work, or tell us a little bit about the tasks you're looking to delegate. I've had a time or two had clients or leads list off information or tasks that was not a good fit for the agency. That way I can reach back out before really committing to a full meeting to talk to them about what their needs are and just let them know, hey, you know what, this is not actually a great fit, but I have other resources or I have people that I can connect you with that could potentially do that thing that you're looking for. So keep that in mind. Now, when you click share again, you can share this and embed it in a website or your direct link. Now, let's say you are a starting virtual assistant. Let's say you don't have a website at all. It would be really great to capture this information, but what happens when you don't have a website you can embed or link this to? Well, the great thing about this direct link is that you can actually put it wherever you are able to put a link. So for example, if you go to create a free Facebook business page and you have this contact us button, if you click on that, we'll actually pull up this lead capture form. What a great way to be able to capture this information without you having to have a website completely ready for you. And that includes any place where you can put a link. So it could be a link in your bio in Instagram. It could be a link in your bio in TikTok. So wherever it is you exist, it could be your Google My Business page. This can too exist, even if you don't have a website. Again, Dubsado is really great at meeting you where you're at. Okay. Let's talk proposals and agreements. All right. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm saying that word too much, I'll be honest. I want to point you to the template library. Let's say, again, you're starting VA, or even if you are an established VA and you feel like your contracts or your agreements or your proposals it's just not doing it for you. Go to the template library. This is actually where I think I created my own contract. And over time, I customized it to our services. But this is a really great place to start. For anybody who is starting their VA business now or recently, I cannot express to you that you do not have to reinvent the wheel. And Dubsado makes it really easy for you to not have to do that. Here we have a virtual assistant contract, we have a questionnaire, and the great thing about this is that you can look at it, right? And all you have to do, you can copy it to your account and then just edit whatever it is that you don't need. Take this logo out, replace it with your own, replace this with your own image. Look through here, see what kind of information you do need and you don't need, and edit from there. It's so much easier to edit than to create. And again, over time, this will most likely change. But if you're just getting started, this is a really great place to start. So take a look at the templates, the forms that you currently have. You can build in here. You can customize it however it is you like. I'll even show you my admin proposal. And you can pretty it up. There's also templates that you could shoot. I think you could purchase, but make it however it is you want. I actually went with a little bit more simplified version. I find that the faster that people can make a decision, less distraction, give them all the information they need and get out, they are more inclined to move forward with a project or move forward with a plan. And the great thing about these services is that this will actually create a an invoice that you don't have to create yourself. So they're creating their own invoices based off of your proposal. And then, so in the settings, one of the things that has impressed many clients continually is how easy and streamlined it is to send a proposal, have a contract attached to that proposal, and then an invoice to pay for them to get started. It can result in missed opportunities if you have to manually send all of these. Once one is done, you send that. And then once that is done, you send that. There's just too much time in between these gaps that can allow people to maybe change their mind or just lose interest. So, us humans, we're fickle in that manner. But this, again, really allows, when you have them all connected to each other, it really allows for that ability to for them to just make that decision and keep going. So this is kind of what that looks like. You can edit it, you can customize it however it is you like. You can do that. It doesn't have to be completely templated every single time, but that's a it's incredibly helpful, though, whether that's the contract, whether that's the proposal, sub-agreements. Sub-agreements are great if their plan gets updated at some point down the road. Just an easy throw them that template, they sign it digitally. That's the great thing too, is that it's all digitally signed and you're good to go. It takes a lot of the thought process and the time spent on getting those prepared to get them sent over. One question is how I nurture leads. So in these projects here are these kind of visual pipelines, if you may, and you can edit this the way, however you want. What I've done is taken these milestones so then it's easy to see where everything's at. You know, we receive a new lead, how many scheduled a meeting or didn't, how many quotes have been sent, how many have been followed up on, and then so on and so forth. When it comes to the jobs, you can again lay this out however it is you want. Currently, we have phone services, admin, social media, project based, and then paused and completed. So these are just another tool to allow you to see where you're at in your client journey and what needs to be followed up on. One other thing that we do to nurture the client or that lead is the workflow. So this is where the automation takes place, and this is kind of where the magic happens, and this is where you'll see the biggest change in your business because literally it could be a click of a button and things happen and you don't even have to touch it. For example, if somebody's interested in executive admin services, it will send this form after it's been approved because I customize it slightly. But then after that, if they don't sign the project or the proposal within 3 days, it will send kind of a general email saying, "Hey, do you have any questions that I can answer for you?" And then if they do sign that proposal, then it will go through all of these project statuses automatically. And then the contract, it will notify me if a contract's been signed and then if an invoice has been paid in full. And then the great thing is that every workflow can actually trigger another workflow to start, which is our onboarding workflows. Now, these workflows are different based off of the services that we provide because I have proposals for each different types of services. So we have one for executive administrative, general admin, phone services, project management, all that stuff. And so that allows us to basically go through that same process, but customize it based off of the proposal that needs to be added to that project. Now, I want to show you what a kind of a project looks like. And this is just kind of a dummy project here. So it kind of shows, I know that I'm kind of in the way here, but it shows the contract that's applied. It shows the type of service. Now, tags can be anything. I use tags as a virtual assistant. I use tags to indicate the industry of the client. So that could look like a bakery, could look like bookkeeping, business services, counseling, fashion, food and beverage. Tags could also, I guess you can use tags for maybe the type of service you're providing. So it's completely up to you as to how you want to utilize tags. And then when it comes to project status, you can kind of see where everything's sitting. Now this portal is actually kind of a neat tool, but I'll be completely honest with you. So portals are great when it comes to client work. It will show the client what kind of outstanding invoices are. It will allow them to um, access a copy of their contract and proposal, all invoicing, any kind of PDFs, questionnaires, all of that stuff. So if let's say you send them a questionnaire that asks them a bunch of onboarding questions and they maybe finish it halfway and then they come back to it, they can do that through the portal. And I'll show you what this portal looks like. This is what they look like on that side of things. So we have unsigned contracts, we have incomplete forms, projects. So there can actually be multiple projects for one client, which makes sense, right? Especially if you are doing project-based work. And so it can show them everything that you've done for them so far, appointments, contracts, look at all of this. So this is really helpful. Not only that, but they can also see all the emails that they have had between you two. I will be completely honest. There have been many a client who has been impressed with the portal, but in all honesty, unless you are providing something in the portal that they need to be constantly doing, whether that's forms or whatnot, uh, there's little that they need to come back to the portal for because most everything, especially invoicing, is going to come through their email. Let's see here. So when it comes to invoicing, this is one of the biggest reasons why we decided to use Dubsado. Aside from the fact that you can customize proposals to make them look pretty and to set them up to where any plan that they choose creates an invoice and you don't have to create it manually. One of the things that I love about Dubsado is that you can set up reoccurring invoices. So for example, if I wanted to set up a reoccurring invoice for this dummy client, and let's say you have clients starting really any time, like you don't necessarily have a set billing cycle, like the first through the first or the 15th through the 15th, and you're just starting based off of when they start. You can choose whichever day that you want them to start, and then you can apply a package and then apply a payment method, which we'll go over shortly. We're going to do it. And then you can also edit this or customize this on the actual due date, and you can also set up reminders. This is the best part. You don't have to send reminders to your client. You can set up general reminders that will send out automatically if they've not paid their invoice yet. This is really important for us, myself included, that have this emotional tie to invoicing. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel guilty or completely unmotivated, or it just drains me to invoice clients. And if you are similar in nature, setting up reoccurring invoicing means that they're going to get an invoice every single month without me doing a thing. They're going to get reminded about paying that invoice if they don't pay up. And that is so worth Dubsado to me to not have to worry about that. And so you just hit that start reoccurrence, and then they'll get an email that looks like this in their email. It says below is the link to your invoice, and then you click on that invoice. And oh, that's because I deleted it. Don't worry about that. If there was an invoice that I created, that would look there. There would be there. So that is the great thing about reoccurring invoicing. And then when it comes to the invoice itself, you can delete it. You can end it. Let's say the client decide, that it's a temporary project. We're only providing services for 3 months. You set it up for 3 months, and then it stops after those 3 months. So it's incredibly customizable. It's wonderful. I want to go over payment plans because this is also really helpful, where you can set up payments or invoices that are due on receipt, which is 0 days after payment plan applied to invoice, amount due, and then the reminders. Now you can have multiple reminders. You don't have to have just one. So you can add as many reminders as possible. There was this one client that used Dubsado, and she sent a reminder every single day for 10 days after the invoice was due. And let me tell you that she had an incredible close rate on those invoices because it was so, it was, you know, it was daily. It was daily that they got those reminders. And so to turn that off, they paid. And then you have the initial client payment. This is the great thing. So it's not all based off of the same type of trigger. And so let's say, after payment plan applied to invoice, this is the trigger. It's applied to the invoice. For initial payment client, this is after the contract is signed by the client. Same with the reminders. Reoccurring payment schedule, 3 days after payment plan is applied to invoice. Let's say you do project-based work and you do, a deposit up front and then 50% after so many days, or 50% after you hit a particular milestone. That's the great thing about this. So, like, if you have a specific date in mind or the amount of time that's passed, it will automatically send out not only that initial invoice, but the invoice to finish up with the payment. So, payment plans, setting those up, it's incredibly easy. And once you have it set up and you apply it to an invoice, that's it. Let's go back through this dummy client project. Now there's a lot that you can do in the project. So for example, you have the emails that you can see um, plain as day. You can even respond to emails as needed through Dubsado itself. You have your invoicing, whatever kind of invoices you have. You have your forms that you've sent or have been sent. Also, you can attach any kind of form that you have created in Dubsado as a template, or you can even just upload a PDF as you'd like. You can add a one-time link if, let's say, you are utilizing a program outside of Dubsado that you wanted to share with them. So, for example, let's say you're doing some creative work for them and the creative work actually lives in Trello, then you can create a one-time link to their Trello account that can live in their portal, and you can send via email using their smart forms. And yeah, you can do that. This will show any kind of appointments that you have, whether that's confirmed or pending, that you've had with them. I'll talk a little bit more about the scheduler, but the great thing about the scheduler here in Dubsado is that you can actually integrate Zoom and um, other video conferencing software. So then it will automatically send a custom Zoom link. You have the workflows, anything that's been applied to the project workflow wise. You can kind of see what's been completed and what has not. And you can even see it in a different kind of view, whether list is easier for yourself, or maybe this is easier where you can kind of see what has been done with all the projects that you have and what still needs to be done. So that's one way that you can kind of review your workflows. And then here are tasks. You can add a task for yourself. You can also create um, tasks that are automatically applied to projects through the workflow, the automated workflow. And if you ever bring on anybody else in your company, you can also assign it to other individuals that are also in the Dubsado account. So you can create due date, you can add your to-do, you can have your task list here, as well as task boards if that's easier for you, like just visually. And then, of course, if you have any kind of notes in for the client or the project, that will live here. You can also see activity logs. You can have call logs. So if you are talking with the client, you can put that information in here so it can live in here to reference later on down the road. Lots of information that um, you can document and reference, not only for you but for anybody else that might join your company and add to your Dubsado account. Let's talk about honorable mentions. We have the Dubsado scheduler, which I absolutely love, the reporting feature that I use often to keep track of my revenue, and then form templates, which we've already talked a little bit about, and then customer service. So let's talk a little bit about the Dubsado scheduler. It says it's been in beta, but it's been in beta for years now, I believe. The great thing about these scheduler links is one, it's you no longer have to have a separate program like Calendly or Acuity if you already have that existing in your business. And if you don't have that existing, then you don't have to worry about paying for a second program. These schedulers, you can create as many schedulers as you want. It is integrated in with your calendar. That's also, if you connect any and all calendars that you have, then any type of time that's available will be applied to, what calendars you have connected. So even if it says 9 to 5, if my calendar doesn't reflect that, and maybe the only time that's available is 3 o'clock and 3:45, that's what the scheduler link will show whoever the client or the lead. So that's great. You can customize this however you want. The amount of time for the appointment, the amount of time this scheduler link could even be used. So let's say you wanted to create a scheduler link that's only for one particular client and one situation. Send it to them, they use it, that's it. That's the only availability that they have. So they can't go back into their email months down the road and still use that same scheduler link if that's ever something that you're in need of. The advanced options, you can have buffer times. So for example, let's see here. Let's chat. This is kind of for just a general people who want to have a virtual coffee date with me. I have less availability for that. So I have less, ranges of time that I would list. You have that buffer time, allow only so many appointments like that per day, which is great. And then you can also set up notifications. So 24 hours before they get hey, your appointment's coming up, 1 hour before your conversation's about to start. This will allow people, especially if for whatever reason the meeting doesn't get on their calendar, it will allow them to say, oh, that's not on my calendar, I need to reschedule, which actually gives them a reschedule link that they can use, or it reminds them to put it back on their calendar and be available at that time. One other thing that you can also do is Let's say you wanted to set up a scheduler link for a one-off like consult fee, like consultation, and you wanted to charge them $199 to do that. You can actually set up a scheduler link specifically for that consult and add an invoice to it, meaning they cannot schedule a meeting with you unless they pay that fee or unless they pay that invoice. So that's awesome, right? Also, let's say you have a lead capture form in your Facebook page or your website, and you have that form information to kind of vet them to see if they're a good fit. Well, what happens if somebody outside of your website reaches out to you and says, "Hey, I'm interested in services. Can we set up a time to meet?" Well, they're not, I mean, it would be a little, I guess it wouldn't necessarily be convenient for them if you said, "Hey, go through my website and fill out a form." You can actually set up a scheduler link that has a form attached, that general VA services inquiry form attached, which means, I'll show you what this looks like. That means that when they choose a time in which they want to set up, and they choose a time, they have to complete this form in order to get that scheduled on your calendar. So again, you can still vet them. If it doesn't look like a good fit, you'll still have time to let them know, so you don't have to go through with the meeting. And even if that's not necessarily the case and they're a good fit, you have all the information that you need to prepare for that meeting. So the scheduler is great. You can even group them up, scheduler groups. So meaning if you were to um, group up, let's say a half hour, a 15-minute, and a 10-minute scheduler link, then the person who gets that link can choose between half hour, 15-minute, or a 10-minute meeting. So that's also quite helpful. Now let's talk about the reporting feature. I'm going to show you guys my dashboard here. Some of the reporting that you have is you can kind of set up financial goals for yourself. Revenue indicator, open invoices. This is really helpful too. You can actually see invoices that are overdue, any contracts that need countersigned, and so on and so forth. One thing that isn't really talked about too much in Dubsado is that you can use this reporting feature to show project sources, project breakdowns, invoices, transactions, chart of accounts, and reports. So like for project sources, it'll show kind of where, how many projects are from a particular source like this. So who's referring that work to you? And then invoices is pretty um, self-explanatory. Reports, you can kind of see in the last 365 days what kind of income's been coming through. This I wouldn't necessarily use solely for your kind of like bookkeeping, but it's still really nice to see as you kind of keep track of your revenue each week, each month, and hit those goals. Now let's talk about customer support. All right. One thing that I am so thrilled about with Dubsado is, one, they have so many resources, incredible resources that you can utilize. And you can hit that right up here, Help Center, Facebook community, release notes, and contact. But not only that, let's say if you were to ask or Google how to do something, how to create a scheduler link in Dubsado, it will pop up something, whether that's a YouTube video or actual written notes on how to do that. But let's say you kind of come up with something a little bit complex. This right here has been such a lifesaver, not only for my own Dubsado account, but for clients as well, where you can have a conversation with Dubsado's tech support, and they are incredibly helpful, very responsive. They are clear in whatever kind of directions that they have and the resources that they have in order for your question to be answered. So not only that, but you can also see that there are some frequently asked questions here that may be an answer to the question that you have without having to touch base with them. But that has been one of the best features, especially when learning Dubsado and getting to know it. You can always just shoot them a quick message saying, "Hey, I have a question," and they're always incredibly pleasant to work with. One other thing that I wanted to mention is in utilities. So let's say that you are a solo VA and you're currently using another time tracking method like Toggle or Clockify. You can actually track your time here in Dubsado. So you can write out the description, click on the project, and then you can choose whichever project you're working on, and then you can track your time going from there. Not only can you do this, but if you are working on an hourly basis versus like a purchase plan, this time tracking will show up in the invoice, or you can actually create an invoice that reflects the time that you've tracked in Dubsado. It's incredibly helpful. Again, another program that you don't necessarily need to utilize, especially if you are a solo VA. Okay, so a couple more things that I wanted to point out are packages. So you can create a package which is easily applied to invoices, or you can set it up to where it is reflecting in a proposal. Then you can also create all of these canned emails. Also wanted to mention these canned emails, half of them are actually templates from Dubsado that I've just tweaked a little bit because again, why reinvent the wheel when you have something already solid in what you want to send to them. So you can create a new canned response as you wish, or you can take some of the great templates that Dubsado already has available and just tweak it a little bit. And then it's easily applicable um, applicable to the project. So for example, I want to show you this. So we're going to go back to the dummy account. Let's say I want to send an email and I want to send one of these templates. So instead of writing it all out or copying and pasting it, you just click this little this ribbon here, and you can actually just apply it. And the great thing, what I also really like, whether it's in the proposals, in the contracts, in these emails, you have these smart fields, and you can input whatever kind of smart field is in here, and then it will apply it to whenever you apply it to whatever type of document there is. So whether that is a client name, whether it's a link or a payment plan or a date, um, all of that can be as easy enough to apply to that, so then you're not constantly having to update the email over and over again. So that is one way to utilize the canned email responses. Super easy to use, super easy to update. And again, use what's already there. Make sure to update whatever it is you need, but a lot of those are already pretty golden. So One last thing to mention is that Dubsado actually has some pretty decent integrations with other general info. So, like, let's say you have QuickBooks already, or Xero, or Zapier, or any kind of conferencing, web conferencing like Zoom. You can actually integrate it into your Dubsado. So when it comes to QuickBooks, any kind of invoices that are paid um, automatically get applied to QuickBooks. So there's no issues with um, keeping that bookkeeping open. You're not creating more work for yourself by having to duplicate those efforts. So that's nice. All right, so I am coming up to the end of my webinar. I hope that you found this helpful. I cannot stress enough how much Dubsado has been so integral in the building of my business. And so there's a lot that we covered today, but there's also a lot that we didn't. When it comes to workflows, you can customize that however it is you work with your clients. And the great thing is that the Dubsado community on Facebook is incredibly helpful. If you are not really sure, especially when it comes to those automations or workflows, how that really works, chances are you're going to be able to respond or post in that community, and there's going to be a flood of support as to how you could get the results that you're looking for when it comes to that automation. And I have to say, when you are starting your VA business, if you're in that startup phase, it may seem like you have all of the time in the world to write up a proposal and send it manually. And it's kind of like, well, why do I need this now? I'm telling you that as you get busier, you're going to find yourself split between having to do the back end and build and making sure the operations of your business is going well, and then there's the client work. So Dubsado has been so helpful in automating a lot of that back end um, operations, where I can apply my time and effort in either client work, the management of my team, in marketing. And so that has allowed us to grow over the course of these 3 years. So if you are interested in Dubsado, if you want to take a shot at Dubsado, I would highly recommend it. While it might seem a little overwhelming, especially if you're in that startup phase and you have time to really get into it and build it out and get to know Dubsado, I cannot stress how helpful this will be down the road when you find yourself without that time, because you have client work that you have to do. So get your subscription today. You're going to save a ton on this using the Dubsado code, because it's also applicable to the sale that they're having. So feel free to use my code, get that 20% off on top of the sale. And if you have any questions at all regarding virtual assisting in Dubsado, feel free to reach out to me. And thank you again for Dubsado, the Dubsado team, to allow me the opportunity to provide this webinar for my fellow industry peers. So good luck and have an amazing day.